following is an exclusive presentation of Jessup Broadcasting, the sports leader in Southeast Georgia.
World famous. The world famous Butch and Bob Show.
And it is now time for the world-famous Butch and Bob Show right here on WIFO 105.5 FM in Jessup. 2 minutes after 8 o'clock. And, Bob, here we are. Very chilly morning out there this morning, but feels brisk, right?
It's wintertime.
It's wintertime. Hey, it's cold out there. Well, it's wintertime. Well, it is the world-famous Butch and Bob Show, and we have on the world-famous Butch and Bob Show from Atlanta, State Representative Bill Werkheiser. Bob, take it away.
Bill, how you doing today?
Good morning. Can y'all see me?
I can't
Yes,
see you.
I can
Butch
see you.
see you. I don't have the screen
I can
in front
see
of me.
you. I can turn the screen a little bit this way so Bob can see you.
We've come a long way in radio, hadn't we?
Yes, indeed.
Yes, sir. We're doing this Zoom stuff kind of like y'all are having to do there with all your meetings there in the state capitol, right, Bill?
Yeah, I think, I got another one at 9 o'clock. It's different times, and I think a lot of the stuff's going to stay around for a while when you're just going to do things differently.
Okay. All right.
Well, it's been a busy couple of days up there. A lot of legislation proposed. What stands out for you?
Oh, gosh. I was going to run late this morning. I was in the trains, but there is nothing to stop someone from dropping a bill about any subject, any item. I could drop a bill tomorrow to say I want the state color to be orange. And that doesn't mean it's going to get a hearing or go anywhere, but there is no shortage of ideas. I think we had a Democrat colleague yesterday drop 11 bills in one day, and I think she's got 30-something.
No, does committee handle that first? The weed out?
What happens? That's a great question. So let's kind of get through that process. So let's say y'all come to me with an idea, and y'all want to make radio the state media slogan of the state. We love radio. And so I would drop that bill. First I would find we've got about 30 attorneys in legislative council, and I would find the attorney that would be germane to that subject. And so there's an attorney assigned to my committee that I chair, which is industry and labor. So if somebody drops a bill, say to raise minimum wage, and we have that bill before us, they would go find that attorney, and that attorney would write it so that it would be consistent and wouldn't conflict with any of the codes in the state of Georgia. And so then they would, it takes them a few days to do that. They would let the legislator know that the bill is ready. And then it's called the next day it'd be called a first reading. And that's one of those things that we're doing in the chamber. If anybody's ever watched us, where we're just all walking around, nobody's listening to what's going on. That's because nobody's listening. The clerk is up there reading the tagline to the bill, and they'll say, bill sponsored by Werkheiser, the 157, Meeks of the 178, and whoever the other co-sponsors are. And so he'll interrupt the clerk before he can even finish reading the tagline, and he'll say industry and labor. Or he might say judiciary, or judiciary non-civil, or education, or health and human services. So that bill gets assigned. And so then, and then the next morning, it gets read, the title gets read in a second fashion, in a little quicker speed. And then, so that bill has been sent. Right now, I've got about 8 or 10 bills that have been sent to my committee.
So it's read on the floor a couple times very quickly and then sent to committee?
Yes, sent to committee. But of those 10 bills that have been put in my committee so far, none of them really have much merit, to put it politely. So they won't get a hearing. Now, I've got a couple of bills lined up. In fact, I'm meeting with the Commissioner of Labor in about an hour from now. And I usually carry the Department of Labor bills. And so, we meet on Wednesdays at 3. My committee does. Each committee has like a standing time they meet. And then the members of that committee are put there by the speaker that have expertise in that area, such as like Stephen Meeks. You know, he's on agriculture and consumer affairs. And so, and then as a 30-year business owner, I'm on industry and labor. So we will, if the chairman decides to hear that bill, the author will sit in a table in front of the committee, almost like they're testifying, and they'll try to give a compelling reason why we need to pass that bill out.
So the chairman on each one of these committees is the gatekeeper. They determine what bills are going to be discussed and voted on. Is that correct?
Yeah. So,
all right, so that's how a bill is basically handled. I just want to know the procedure on that, because you got so many coming in. It's read on the floor a couple times, and it goes to committee, and then the chairman decides whether it's going to be discussed and voted on, and then it goes from there. All right, thank you.
Yeah. It goes to the House floor. Well, actually, you got to go through one more committee just to get on the House floor. So it's a long process to get a bill passed all the way through the process. There's about, I think, 11 steps. And you kind of want it that way. You don't want to be changing law willy-nilly. So there's a lot of stopgaps. And just to give you some perspective and context, we file about 900 bills every year. And the governor only signs about 110, 120.
All right. So
I tell folks that come in here energized, got all these ideas. I tell them you got a 90% chance your bill is not going to make it just by sheer math, and then you can take it from there.
All right. Bob?
I got to apologize. I lost my train of thought when he said germane to the situation. I went back to Smoking the Bandit. Jackie Lee is saying the Germans didn't have anything to do with it. But
Bob's mind's wondering this morning.
That's what flashed my mind when he said germane to the situation. But anyway, the legislative session, we'll get back to the news. But as I mentioned, a lot going on. Let's talk about, when you were here for the exit issues, we talked about the voting process and trying to clean that up. There has been some legislation that took place on Tuesday or Monday, Senate Bill 29 introduced, which would require Georgia voters to make copies of their photo ID and mail them to election officials before being allowed to cast an absentee ballot. Senate Bill 29 would create a photo ID requirement for voting outside of polling places. Voters would need to submit ID both when applying for absentee ballots and when returning them. This sounds like a good bill, but I'm sure it's going to be debated. I saw the Democrats are already yelling and screaming, saying that they don't think this is a good idea. So how do you see all these battles playing out in the legislature? Is it going to be hotly debated? Something like that's, the common person, you would think it just makes sense. You have to have a driver's license to drive. Why not have a photo ID to vote? Why is that a problem? Explain that to me.
That's a great question. And think about all the times you got to show your ID. If you buy one beer with less than 5% alcohol in it, you've got to show your ID. You've got to do that. When you enter places, when you enter government buildings. And so to say that that's a hardship to show your ID is kind of a stretch. They're trying to come up with as many arguments as they can that, people don't have copiers in their home. Well, almost everybody. I think the government even gives people free phones now. Most people have a device that they can take a picture of their photo ID. And if you don't, I can't imagine you not knowing someone who doesn't have a phone, who can't take the picture for you. And news alert, you can go vote in person if you want to.
Yeah, 3 weeks in advance on Voters' Day. That's when most people should be voting anyway.
Including a Saturday and a Sunday. So, all the discussion about, there's people who work shift work and long hours. Well, early voting is open until 7, from 7 to 7. That's 12 hours right there. And then a Saturday and a Sunday before the election. And then you can get, we may have a lot of issues in the state, but voter suppression is not one of them.
That term is just thrown around every single time something happens like this, is voter suppression, and basically what the state legislature is trying to do is to make sure that each vote is a legit vote, and there's nothing wrong with that.
So we had a caucus meeting yesterday, with the House Republicans. And it's a closed-door meeting. It's kind of like our family up here, and we start, in fact, with taking prayer requests because we're a pretty tight-knit group, and we spend time in prayer, and then we discuss issues, and generally each meeting is focused on an issue. And yesterday it was elections, and we heard from the chairman, Barry Fleming, who's one of the brightest attorneys you'll meet. He's very such an even keel. It's hard to get him excited, but he's really smart. And he said the acronym for that committee that he's going to chair, when they hear every bill, it's going to be based on the FAST acronym, FAST. Is it fair? Is it safe? Is it fair? Is it accessible? Does it make the election safe? And does it make the elections process transparent? And so that's his goal. And now some of the bills that Bob, that you've already mentioned are on the Senate side. The House is moving a little bit more methodical. In fact, Chairman Fleming, after he got his committee set up, the Speaker assigned about 10, 12 members to that committee. He divided that committee up into members. And so they, almost like the whip team, so I was assigned a member, and that member has already come to me and asked me a couple of questions like, are you for this? Are you for or against this? And so he's kind of getting the pulse of where we want to be. He's being very methodical. He knows whatever we do is going to end up in court. And so that's the good thing about having someone smart like him. It's going to be fair. And but Bob, as you said, it's going to be, will it be a fight? Yes. But right now, the Republicans are in charge of the House, the Senate, and the governorship. So whatever comes out of those House and Senate committees is pretty much what will become law.
We have State Representative Bill Werkheiser live from Atlanta on the world-famous Butch and Bob Show here on WIFO. Bob?
As you mentioned, all this stuff right now in the Senate. How well do you know State Senator Ron Stevens of Savannah?
Know him pretty well. He's been here quite a while.
He's pushing. I got this story. He's pushing House Bill 86 would its sale to the House panel on Tuesday in a move aimed at expanding gambling without the constitutional amendment that's usually required. Again, the bill would authorize the Georgia Lottery to manage an online sports wagering system, with some proceeds going to fund Hope Scholarships. House Tourism and Economic Development Committee members voted 20-6 on Tuesday to approve the legislation, though it was not a surprise since the bill's sponsor is committee's chairman, State Senator Ron Stevens. Stevens says the measure is a step towards shoring up the Hope Scholarship. And he's from Savannah, Georgia, says this is an opportunity for us to add a small amount of revenue, $40 million into the current mechanism that we use to fund the Hope Scholarship. Still, the state has more than $1 billion in lottery reserves in case it needs more money for Hope and pre-K programs. Did you realize y'all had $1 billion just sitting around in reserves for the lottery?
I found that out recently.
That was nice to know, isn't it? $1 billion.
It is. $1 billion.
$1 billion.
When they want us to vote on something, they always throw a tug on your heart with something, saying, well, we need to fund the Hope Scholarship, because who's not for the Hope Scholarship? Right. Personally, I think the only thing the Hope Scholarship has done is drive up the cost of education. Why
doesn't he just go, I mean, if you know this guy, when you see him, ask him this question for me. And I said, I don't understand why the push isn't just to put it on a ballot and allow people to vote yay or nay. Because some of this proposals I don't like. Let me read the whole thing. It says, according to legislation, sports betting companies will pay a 14% tax on their net income, with all the revenue going to the Hope Scholarship. Players would have to be over 21 to bet, be in the state of Georgia, place a wager, and could only bet on professional sporting events. Wagering on college games would not be allowed. Representative Randy Nix of LaGrange, Republican and pastor, a member of the committee, says he opposes gambling and views sports betting as a slippery slope. He says if this was going to be it might be okay, but he says he sees this as just a start towards casinos and a lot of other things. Currently, 20 states either have or are in the process of establishing legal sports betting. And this will be debated. As we mentioned, several powerful Republicans, including House Speaker David Ross, the Lieutenant Governor, supposedly has signaled they'll support some type of sports betting legislation. My question again to you is, why don't they just throw it on a ballot and let the people of the state of Georgia decide yea or nay?
Well,
wouldn't that be easier?
I think the simple answer to that is like I said, we vote on about 300 bills. We've got to decide which ones that y'all sent us up here to vote on, and then which one's constitutional. So let's separate that a little bit, because Ron Stevens also has another bill, the casino bill, that will get put on the ballot, because that's changing the Constitution. There's a difference in changing the Constitution and changing Georgia code. So, but let's get back to the sports betting, and I would love to hear from constituents to get their pulse on this. Because, one of the things about this job, in fact, if you think about the title itself, state representative, there's a lot of trust in that I will vote my values, but the reality is I was voted to represent the people of the 3 counties I represent, even if it goes against what I think is my personal preference, as long as it doesn't go against, a moral or ethical issue. So would love to hear from people. So the sports betting app is a little different. Tennessee just passed it. Illinois has had it for a while. Illinois just passed the $1 billion mark, and like most things up here, it's all about money. So it's geofenced. If you put the app on your phone, if you cross over into Alabama or Tennessee, you can't bet. So it's you got to be in the state of Georgia. And actually, I tell you where this idea came from. It didn't come from Ron Stevens. They went to him because they know he's the casino guy. The Atlanta Braves, the Atlanta Falcons, the Atlanta United soccer team,
the Hawks, all the sports teams, right? Yeah. They
came to us and said, hey, y'all asked us to play during the pandemic. We've lost a ton of revenue from people not being in the stands. This will get people engaged in the sport, and they're betting anyway. It's just that they're betting overseas. So why not regulate it? Why not get the tax revenue on it? And so that's a little bit of a weak argument. They're doing it anyway. They're doing prosecution anyway. That doesn't mean you regulate it and tax it.
Well, like we discussed before, though, the same thing with the lottery tickets. I mean, it used to be you had to go across the state line to get a lottery ticket. The state of Georgia said, no, we're losing all that money. Let's get the money. It's the same thing. I mean, it's all about money. It's all about the money.
It's the same argument. And so it's a slippery slope if people are doing it. And, some of the argument now is because every time there's an argument about, the downside of gambling in casinos, that they, come up with why this is safer. So one of the safeguards they put in is you've got to use a debit card. And they say, well, how is that a safeguard? Because now if you bet, you got to use if you don't have a way to find it overseas, you use a local bookie. In meeting day yesterday, said everybody knows a bookie that lives in their county. Well, actually, I don't. But if you use a bookie, what happens is you get in over your head through the weekend, and then the bookie can front you money, and then all of a sudden, for Monday night football, so now all of a sudden you wake up Tuesday morning and you're $4,000 in debt. Well, the safeguard here is they're saying if you use a debit card, you can only use the amount of money that's in your account. So, whether that's a fair argument or not, I don't know. Again, I would love to hear from folks who think this is, a good idea or not. I really am on the fence on this. So would love to. I'm a no on casinos until someone proves me otherwise. On the sports betting app, I'm a wait and see what happens.
Education always a key issue in all legislative sessions. I saw the governors saying they're still having trouble finding teachers. They're trying to make a proposal where they're going to make it more attractive for retired teachers to come back out of retirement. I mean, a lot of them do the 49%, but there's a proposal on the table that's going to make it even more attractive to come out of retirement. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, and that idea actually, I guess, kind of came from law enforcement when our state patrol was ranked 49th in pay. We started that idea a couple of years ago up here. We started bringing people out of retirement. A, they're already trained. B, you can pay them less because they've already got their retirement income. C, they don't need the benefits because their benefits are included in the retirement. So it's a good way to get a quality employee as a lesser cost. It has worked well, like I said, in law enforcement. So I don't see why it wouldn't work here. That'd be a great question for your Wayne County Retired Teachers Association, which, by the way, is one of the top retirement associations in the state. Every state has, every county has one, but some of them are not organized. Like Evans County, I don't think they ever meet. Tattnall County has one; they're active, but the Wayne County one, in fact, they won several statewide awards this year. That'd be a great question for that group.
Yeah, we'd love to get their president in or something like that on the world famous Butch and Bob Show to talk about.
They meet every month.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, Western Sizzling, and they invite us once a year to come talk to them. Right. Very active group. They'd be a great one to have on the show.
I had a chance to talk to you since they made the proposal. The governor has finally put some teeth in the broadband. We talk about that every year at the Eggs and Issues about this area. A lot of places in Wayne County still having trouble, but apparently a lot of money has been put up front to push that for the rural areas of the state.
So on the one hand, yeah, it sounds like a lot of money, 20 or 30 million, depending on how you look at it in the future, is a lot of money. Don't know how far that will go when it comes to, because, we always talk about the last mile. That's the great expense, and that's what personally I think satellite is going to be the way of the future. But before everybody gets too excited, most of this money is going to be granted to city and county municipalities who decide to get into the broadband business. So you got to decide if you want your local governments getting into that. It has worked well, especially in North Georgia, where there's been growth of high-income areas, such as when you get above metro like Cherokee, Forsyth, those counties who have dense populations of higher income. Of course, the catch-22 there is those are the areas that the AT&Ts and Verizons are flocking to because they know, again, it's high density and acceptance rates. One of the things that really surprised me when I was on the Rural Development Council was, and why some of these folks, like, we did things for the EMCs to get involved, and yet most of them chose not to. Well, there was a reason for that. The lower the income of the area, the lower the acceptance rate. I don't know if y'all know this or not, but there's a large percent of people that don't have internet, and they don't have it because they can't get it. They don't have it because they don't want it.
It is amazing these days that there are folks who do not want internet. It's an integral part of our society, but that's just the way it is.
Yes, they've gone their whole life without it, and they don't want another $100 a month bill so they can get online. So the acceptance rate is a big deal, somewhere in the 20-something% range. So that makes it a tough decision for these providers.
Again, Bill Werkheiser on the phone with us. We'll wrap it up. Super Bowl Sunday, you got a favorite?
For whatever reason, I've been less engaged in sports this year than the past.
That's why you're not for sports betting. See, I have to take to the casino down in Jacksonville.
As an
I'm
old
only
man,
one vote, but I'm all for it.
You got to be enamored with Tom Brady. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
What was their record last year?
7-9.
7-9.
Yeah, goes to Tampa Bay, takes him to the Super Bowl, says he's going to play after the age of 45. He's 43 now, so I wouldn't doubt it. So,
hey, the interesting trivia for you. After this game, Brady, because of the amount of playoffs that he has been in, he's played 3 more seasons than he would have had he not made any playoff.
What's going to be amazing if he wins the Super Bowl, he'll have 7, which will be more than any franchise in the NFL. Pittsburgh and New England each have 6. So
trivia after trivia, it's amazing.
It's just an amazing story, and like I said, I didn't think he'd beat New Orleans. He did. Didn't think he'd beat Green Bay. He did. So now he's at home in Tampa Bay. So I'll let you know my pick on Friday.
Speaking of betting, I wouldn't bet against him. How about that?
Yeah, we've already said that. Yeah.
Bill, how is the security there at the state capitol? Has things kind of eased down a little bit?
They have. You don't see the amount of the volume, but you still see the armored trucks, and we walk in between. There are heavily armed state patrol and Capitol Police in between the parking lot and the building. And the streets are blocked off. You can't even drive down the street in front of the building. And in fact, there was I saw last week in the paper that they're trying to do a deal with the city of Atlanta to just permanently block that street off. They block it off every year anyway during session. And so, and then we walk in, and actually the State Patrol's one monitoring the temperature machine. And so, I feel very safe. And we're really, we haven't had as much activity as we did during the June session when the Black Lives Matter protests were going on. Mm-hmm. In fact, we haven't had any protests.
Okay.
So,
and what about the COVID protocols? Y'all still wearing the mask around other folks, still spitting in the cup twice a week and doing all that?
Cup. And this is one of the few times I don't have my mask on because I'm in my office with the door closed.
Yeah.
I got an interesting question.
And it's good to see your face here on Zoom than a mask over here. We appreciate that.
As far as the COVID testing, I got an interesting question. The Senate apparently reports who test positive, but the House doesn't for some reason. What's the reason behind that?
I don't know, but now they're not telling you who; they're just telling you what numbers.
Okay, but one side's doing it, giving you the other one's not. I don't understand why is it such a secret?
I don't know, but I had an intern here in my office that got tested positive, and that caused a little excitement around here. But let me tell y'all this. Here's what's interesting: we had 3 people that did the spit in the cup, and I mean it's a tiny amount of spit that they're testing. This technology is amazing, and Georgia is, and this has not been proved, but this process has not been approved by the FDA yet. But let me tell you how good it is. We had 3 people that I personally know of, that tested positive, and they thought it was a false positive because they were feeling great, but they had to go home. Within 3 days, all 3 of them were sick in bed.
Yeah, it doesn't. You can have it for a few days there before you actually start feeling the symptoms.
But that's how accurate it is, and
it's all through
the heck out of sticking a swab up your nose.
And it's all through the procedures from Georgia Tech. Is that correct?
Yeah, they invented the process, and kudos to them. And really invented it for their students, and it was just going to be a closed system since it wasn't FDA approved. And I don't know who had the brains to. But I'm glad they did because that beats the heck out of putting a swab up your nose.
Yeah, it does. A lot of people, that swab can be a little painful for folks. And, State Representative Bill Werkheiser on the phone with us this morning, live from his office at the Capitol. What's on the agenda today, Bill?
It's slow. This session is always like a snowball where everybody is busy filing bills. And as that process I explained at the beginning of the show, a lot of committees haven't, I haven't even heard a bill in my committee yet. And I haven't even been to a committee. I've got one at 1 o'clock today. We're going to hear a bill from the governor's office. So we're really just clicking off days. The time we're in the chamber is probably less than an hour. We're not. And so now we're just going through the hustle bustle of getting bills filed and getting them on the calendar, trying to convince the chairman to hear them. And so the next couple of weeks, it's going to pick up steam a lot. But right now, we're like y'all. We're just reading all the some of them crazy ideas that people are following.
And if your constituents down here in the Wayne County, Tatnall County area need to get a hold of you, got some ideas or questions, how do they do that, Bill?
The easy one, email, just because it's easier to remember, is bill@werkheiser.com. And that way it pops up on my personal phone instead of my state computer.
Okay, repeat that once again.
bill@werkheiser.com.
Okay, all right.
I might have to Google how to spell my name. I was about 10 years old before I figured out how to spell it.
Yeah, just Google to spell his name. Yeah. All you got to do is put State Representative Bill Work, and it'll pop up.
Yeah.
Just put it in the search bar.
So bill@werkheiser.com is probably the best. My cell phone is 912-237-0145.
Right.
And we, fortunately for the entire Wayne delegation, myself, Mix and Tillery, we love hearing from folks. And again, I'd love to hear people's idea on the sports betting app.
Be a sports betting app for the state of Georgia that you would have to use a debit card to place these bets, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would suggest do a little homework first instead of just being a flat yes or no.
Right.
Because it's an interesting idea.
It's always interesting to look at other states that have done that and see their experiences and talk to their folks.
Tennessee just did it. They've already bringing in serious money. With $40 million you figured, that is on a very low end. Illinois just passed $1 billion and bringing in new revenue.
It's amazing how the economy, when it goes down like it has during the pandemic and any other time, the economy of 2008 or whatever, when people seem to be out of work and have less money and that kind of stuff, vices still seem to go strong, from smoking to drinking to gambling.
Funny you said that. Our alcohol sales are the highest they've ever been because we track that because we collect an extra tax on that. And alcohol sales have been the highest year ever.
And so is smoking, because people are not in their offices. They're around their homes more than they can smoke when they want to. So the vices seem to go up when the economy goes down.
I told my wife the other day, I was putting the seat on, I said, I bet these men warehouses and Joseph A. Banks, I said, I bet they're not doing well right now.
Well, Bill, you have a great day up there in Atlanta. Stay safe, and we'll look forward to talking to you next Wednesday with Wednesdays with Werkheiser.
All right. Well, thank y'all for allowing me to do this.
All right.
Bye.
All right, Bob, anything else on your mind this morning before we head out of the world-famous Butch and Bob Show?
Just head to the National Signing Day at Wayne County High School.
Headed there.
Excited day.
Okay. All right. He'll have the report for you tomorrow on our Sportscast right here on WIFO 105.5 FM in Jessup. And the world-famous Butch and Bob Show brought to you by First Southern Bank, Damon's Famous Fingers and Wings, and Murphy Builder Supply.
World famous Butch and Bob Show.